Welcome to Unscripted with Marilyn Morales. Welcome to all my viewers. I took a break last week because I was on vacation, so I am back with some really impactful guests. But before I get to who my next guest is, this episode is brought to you by Izzy's Legacy Incorporated. As all my viewers know, I started a nonprofit earlier this year in order to increase the diversity in the Be the Match registry. That is a stem cell bone marrow registry where people that suffer from blood cancers and disorders go when they are searching for someone to save their life. And as I've said many times before, the presence of Latinos and those of color are not represented well in that registry, and we need to do something about it. So this episode is brought to you by Izzy's Legacy Inc., and I am going to share a video.
So ever since Isabella's passing, I made it my goal and my mission to continue to honor her life, continuing her legacy through Izzy's Legacy. I not only do this every day through my professional career, but now I have the opportunity to do this through this amazing organization. The work that we're going to do is so important because we're spreading awareness, and now we're able to do so much more within our organization, primarily really educating the community about the need for more donors on the registry, specifically those of diverse backgrounds due to the disparity, and being able to financially help those patients going through a cancer journey. We're helping children like Isabella and families like ours who went through a really tough time through our journey. So we want to be able to do all that we can to honor Isabella through helping others like us.
Thank you, Gabby, for that impactful message. Now, my next guest is somebody that I have been after to interview for a very long time. She and I go back a long time. We went to high school together, Clara Barton High School, where we went for the nursing program, where I became an LPN at the age of 17 years old. She decided that she was going to take a different approach to medicine. And let me read you her bio because it's a fantastic one. Dinorah Claudio, 55 years young, division commander for the Fire Department of New York EMS, lives in Brooklyn, New York, graduated Clara Barton High School in 1986. Yes, I'm dating us. Became an EMT in 1989. She first worked for the Health Hospitals Corporation in 1996. EMS was merged with the Fire Department of New York. She is currently in her 33rd year working for the New York City Fire Department. She has risen through the ranks and is currently the division commander for Brooklyn Central. So proud of you, girlfriend. So proud of you. She is the highest ranking Latina in the EMS Bureau. She oversees and manages 5 stations with approximately 534 employees who respond to medical emergencies in Crown Heights, East New York, Ocean Hill, Canarsie, and parts of Brooklyn South. Let's welcome to the show, Dinorah Claudio. Hello, beautiful.
Hello to you and to everyone and to all your viewers. And yes, she has been after me for quite some time.
Yeah, the reason being, I love to showcase those of color, Latina, especially women who have been through some stuff, who have been through some struggle and have managed to come out on the other side. One of the missions that I have, in addition to working with Izzy's Legacy Incorporated, is to show people that regardless of the struggle that you have, that you can make it, that you can come out on the other side. And Dinorah absolutely embodies that statement completely. Okay. So tell my viewers, I shared a little bit about our background, but tell our viewers where you come from, your family comes from, and a little bit about you.
Well, to put it in a nutshell, so I was Puerto Rican born, Dominican by heritage. So I have the best of the 2 cultures.
That's right.
Came to the United States at the age of 4 and have been here ever since. I am, like Marilyn said, I'm a graduate of Clara Barton High School, where we both studied for licensed practical nursing. And after even being in college, that was also my route as well. But then, life throws some curveballs at you, right? So I had to take some time off. And in that time, I unfortunately was a victim of a fire and found myself in the hospital. And who took me there? New York City EMS at that time, which was run by Health and Hospitals Corporation, which is the city's hospital system. And it sparked something in me and said, hey, maybe this is the way to go. I signed up, took an EMT course in 1989, became a certified EMT. A year later, I got into the department, and you know, within 6 years of being here, we we were merged, right, with the fire department. So now we've been part of the fire department since 1996. Like Marilyn said, been here 33 years. Every day is Saturday for me, but I really still like what I do. I have two grown children, so I was a single mother throughout most of my career. Um,
Right. Right.
and
Before we get into that, a lot of people, when they hear that I went to a high school for health professions and went into nursing such an early age, right? 15, 16 years old we were at the time, which, a lot of people are like, that's unheard of, right? That's crazy. But what made you want to go into medicine at a young age? What inspired you?
I think it was the foundation that my parents gave me, especially my mom. My mom, unfortunately, was not able to live her dream, which was to become a nurse,
Um,
and I kind of like was geared towards that, and that soon became my goal, right? And I ended up at Clara Barton, and I cemented some really great friendships that are still around till this day. And like I said before, unfortunately, life throws a curveball at you, and I went in a different direction, but I kind of stayed within the same field.
right.
It still gave me even more, I believe, even more satisfaction that I was really helping. I was bringing change and help to those that really needed it. Just a lot more
Absolutely.
than being in the hospital.
Absolutely. I speak about my mom as well because she's the one that guided me throughout my life. I was not born a resilient person, right? I didn't have that innate ability to be resilient, which I feel that you are, right? Knowing you and knowing you this many years, I think every time something comes at you, you just take it on, right? You got that personality where you're going to take it on. And I know that I wasn't like that as a child, but my mother, taught me resilience in everything that I did. And she was always instilling in me um, to be independent, to never rely on someone else, that you never know if your partner's going to be there all the time. So you have to be able to sustain a family, right? So those were the things that she was instilling in me. And then I found out later, same thing. She had wanted to be a nurse as well, right? That was her dream. And, when you come from other countries and you have to move for your family and you never get to live out what you really want, sometimes you live through your children. But I think the most impactful thing is that you have to represent that. You have to teach your children these things. You have to instill that in them. As a single mom to two boys, right? How do you think, was that a struggle for you? Was it easy for you? Talk to me about that.
Well, it was a struggle because I became a single mom when they were very young, 2 and 3 years old. So they were very young, but I was fortunate enough that my parents, helped me. They took on the roles of caretakers. And at the time I was a paramedic. So, the schedule was the schedule. You had to show
Right.
up for work 5 days a week. You couldn't just take off whenever you wanted. And, my shifts often started very early. And then you had the possibility that if something happened or if your relief didn't come in, you were going to have to stay for overtime. Right.
Yeah.
So that was even an additional burden, and that I unfortunately had to put on to my parents. But they they helped me so much. And if it wasn't for my parents, my struggle of being a single mom would have been so much harder.
Right. And, this is something that you can't do life alone, right? You have to be in community. Fortunately, you had your parents. Fortunately, I had my parents. Through the worst of my struggles, I had them as well. Um, but we also have to remember those that don't have close family ties like that. Never be afraid to ask for help or to accept help. More importantly, to accept help when it is offered to you, because we have to be in community. So thank you for sharing that, because I think there's a lot of single moms out there that are trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? Right? What helped you get through that? Because I'm sure every day was like, oh my God, I got to get to work. You're dealing with EMS. Come on, as a paramedic, life threatening injuries a lot of times, right? You're bringing people back to life. You're transporting them. This is like an adrenaline rush every day, because you don't know what you're walking into, right? And
So,
then you got to go and turn the switch off and be mom. So,
right. So, yeah. So I had a couple of years before I actually became a mom in EMS. So that helped me develop coping skills, right?
okay.
And taught me how to, relieve stress and not bring these things home with me, and have them take places up in my mind that didn't need to be there. And that was through the help of my peers, my mentors. When I came on the job, we had grown adults that worked here, that had families, lived paycheck to paycheck, and they took the time to teach me, you know and that helped me grow even more. And then when the time came and I did become a mom, like you said, community, right? So we have our home community, and then I had my work community.
Right.
So those two, things in my life really helped me along the way. Not that it was smooth and easy path, but it definitely helped me develop skills so that I can manage as things came my way. And like you said, I am very resilient. You know,
Mhm.
um, it's life. Life throws things at you very unexpectedly. Um,
Roll
but I
with the
always,
punches, right?
a lot of punches, but I always used to, kidding around, that old saying, the Timex saying, you take a licking and keep on taking. So
Yeah.
I used to always say that to myself because I couldn't dwell. I couldn't sit there and dwell and feel sorry for myself. I had two children to bring up, right? So
That's
I
right.
always wanted to be the best, model for them, the best, mentor for them. So they saw a strong, powerful, not just woman, but individual that always had their back, you know. And okay, so we got a little curveball thrown at us. It's a challenge. I took them on as challenges. And I always reminded myself, if I think I have it bad, I know there's someone out there who has it even worse. And they're doing what? They're getting up every morning, they're dusting themselves off, and they're coming to work because they have a purpose, they have a goal, right? So I used to always, repeat those things to myself. And these are things that I try to continue to emulate and also to continue to pass on to those coming up behind me.
Right. Tell me about self-care. How did you take care of your mind, body, and spirit while you're going through all this? And how did you decompress from work? That's a big question, right? But there are some tools that you use to do that. What were those things?
Well, when my kids were young, my decompression was my children. I didn't just come home and sit on a couch and that's it. I went out with my children, I did things with my children, I continued to involve myself in family, and
Right.
visit friends and go to birthday parties and do these things. As time progressed and my children got older and they had became sociable people themselves and entered junior high school and high school, now they had their own things that they wanted to do. So I became part of those extended activities as well. And then they got into high school. Now they were totally on their own, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not hanging with mom anymore. It wasn't cool anymore." You know. So I had to, do other things. So I became more involved at work. Again, meeting my friends, my high school buddies, hanging out with them, going out to dinners, going on vacation. A lot of people.
I was going to get to that. Where's vacation coming? Because every time I look at your Facebook, you're flying somewhere.
I show, the next thing you know, you'll see my suitcase on Facebook. Oh, where am I going to?
That's
but,
right.
But you have to disconnect. You have to find self-care, because otherwise all the world's problems are going to come onto your shoulder, and you're not going to find you're not going to find the way out, and then that's going to bring on other physical and mental illnesses that if we look around, so many people right now are suffering from mental illness. And it's a shame that they didn't have either the coping skills or the people or the community to help them, go through those storms.
Right. So in my book, I talk a lot about different things that people have to use. You have to have tools in the toolbox in order for when something comes up, how are you going to deal with that? I'm sure, in your line of work, as in nurses as well, when we're dealing with our patients and we see something, or we lose a patient or something like that happens, we take that home with us, and people don't get that, right? That work doesn't stay at work. Like if you work in another field, or you work with computers, or you work in something else, you can leave that at work. We work with humans, right? We can't leave that stuff at work. It comes with us, and we have to be able to cope with the things that we're experiencing and seeing. Right. For me, some of those things were aromatherapy, meditation. I couldn't take a lot of vacations. I had a lot of hard knocks that affected my financial pocket, right? And raising a family and relocating and all the things that happened to me in between, where I couldn't fly off and take a vacation, right? So I had to find ways where I'm at to be able to do things, whether it's go to the beach, whether it's go to the park, just like you say, go to things with your kids, get in community with other parents that are not in the same field as I am, so we can talk about something else. I'm famous for not talking about work at home. My kids ask me, how was your day? How was work? And I say work. And I don't ever go into it with them. That's something that I had to do in order for me to cope. I want to leave things, where they are. So for me, there's different coping things. Did your community at work, did they ever teach you, how do you deal with when you lose somebody on the job? You lost a patient.
Well, early on when I was the patient care provider, it was difficult, but you have to disconnect. You have to disconnect enough so that you can get the work done, and then you can be there for the family, because oftentimes, if somebody, was really sick and we came in and we gave resuscitative efforts, sometimes whatever we did was not enough, and unfortunately they passed on. And so we never transported the patients. So the patients remain behind with the family. So you have to disconnect, but also then reconnect and become, have empathy towards the family and what they just witnessed. Because, being a pre-hospital care provider, it doesn't look nice. It's not a good view. It really isn't. And it's very impacting to the family and to those people that are not in this field and don't understand the process that we do, and how as a pre-hospital care provider, you're bringing the hospital to the bedside, right? You're providing the same assistance and medical care that would be rendered at the emergency room. The only thing, we're there before the emergency room. And sometimes, those efforts, are not successful. So, we have to, again, through the mentorship that I had growing up in this career, I was able to have those tools to, do what I got to do, get it done. And if it wasn't successful, now turn the switch and now become provide what we called psychological first aid, because the family's here, right? Their loved one is here, and we have to, now explain it, and even sometimes throughout the call, explain the process. Okay, we're going to do this, and this is why we're doing this, and this is the next step, and then this is the next step, and also explain why we weren't removing their loved one from the home and going to the hospital, right? Because
Right.
all our efforts were exhausted. So
Right.
again, my EMS community taught me these skills.
Taught you those.
You know,
Right. Listen, not easy, not easy. My hat's off to you and everybody that you work with, because it's really hard. Usually we're getting it once you've transported them back to us to the hospital. Now, you and I went through two very impactful times in this country's life, right? So yet we responded differently to it. And this is, again, speaking to resilience and how I view you and your ability to jump back on things. 9/11, right? Both of us in New York City, different experiences, right? So we were both at ground zero and not knowing that the other one was there doing something different. But you were on the front line for a long, long time, right? Um, I talk about after that the PTSD that I suffered from witnessing people making a decision to end their life, which was the one that affected me the most, right? Watching that. Um, and the aftermath of all of that we lived through, right? One big thing was we have a mutual friend, best friend of ours, who was getting married, right? I couldn't bring myself to get on that airplane, and I was ashamed to say that because of the fear that was inside of me. But you got on that airplane and you made it there. Okay. Talk to me a little bit about the aftermath for you and how you were able to get through that.
well, okay. So at the time when of 9/11, I was a paramedic.
Mm-hmm.
I was not in the field anymore. I was actually a coordinator, paramedic coordinator. So I was working in an office setting, and as a matter of fact, in this current office, because where I currently work at and I command over is my original um, EMS home where I first started my career.
Mm-hmm.
So um, so that morning I was on duty. I was in the office, and just like everyone else, we were watching the television. The alerts came on, and saw what happened. And of course, our first instinct is to go right towards the
Run.
danger. And the division commander at the time, Walter Kowalczyk, said, "No, I'm going, you're staying." So that was difficult for us because we go towards the danger, right?
Right.
And I'm happy, looking back, that he did that because it was very dangerous, and he himself almost didn't make it out of there that day. But
Right.
later on, that and then we were left behind to manage resources, right, and get people down there, and work with other city agencies to provide transportation for the first responders. And then I finally made it down there that Friday. So as an ALS coordinator, I was on the front lines, manning the resources and providing care for our pre-hospital care workers, you know, because we needed help too. You
That's
know,
right.
they needed help because so many
That's
of
right.
us went there on the first day, second day, and they were in it. So we were there. I remember that first time I went down there. To me, it was just, I was in awe. I was shocked. I was like, "Is this New York?" I thought I was, in some war-ridden country.
Yeah. Third world country. That's like, yeah, yeah. That's how it felt like to me too.
And it was, and the feeling, the smell, to this day, I can smell it, and
Metal.
the metal
Metallic.
burning, and
Hmm.
of course the smell of death, you know
Yep.
um to this day, and even if I go down to, the pools, the World Trade Center pools, and I find myself in the middle of that courtyard, it comes back to me. I can visualize it. I can smell it. I didn't do too many tours down there because my final tour down there, I ended up working as an EMT, right? Because when I got down there, my partner um, was paired up with another paramedic. So then I had to work with an EMT that evening, an overnight tour that I was working. And for me, that was the most impactful day because the route the way things were done is if there was any type of remains found, a bell went off, right? The
Yeah,
bell went off, everything stopped,
that's right.
and it became a ceremony, removing the remains. And then part of my job that night was to move the remains from what we used to call the pit, where the footprints are right now, and going down into the pit. And I remember specifically that night, it happened twice, and it was raining. And, I had big yellow boots on, and I was going down there. And all I can think of is, wow, I'm standing on someone's grave.
Hallowed ground.
This is hollow ground. And I was like,
Crazy.
crazy, right? This was so crazy. And just thinking about it makes me tear up. And I was like, okay, this is that's it. I, I couldn't do it anymore, as much as I wanted to. And, I always hit challenges straight on. For me, that was the icing on the cake. And after that night, I didn't go back. I didn't go back. I supported in other ways, but I didn't go back. But
Yes,
I know many, many, many of my peers, partners who continue to go back, week after week, month after month, and work, in the retrieval of an identification of the remains.
right. Very difficult and hard work. And I know that many people are still to this day traumatized. As I tell my story and I tell about what I witnessed, and that day I was not fearful. I was determined because I had Aiden, who was a 9-month-old baby. I had to get back home to. Didn't know how I was going to do it, right? But I got home later that evening. But it was, I think, all of that. We weren't ready for that. War was brought to us, and as civilians, we weren't ready to see all that. As a nurse, I've seen people's passing all the time, but not like that. Not like that. So having to reconcile that in my mind, the things that I saw, witnessed, the people that I triaged coming from that building, all the things that were witnessed truly impacted me to the point where it made me ill. It made me very ill. And you didn't know that. I didn't call you up and say, you know what, I'm sick. I'm getting sick, because it didn't happen right away. It happened a little while later, so very, very impactful. But yeah, we deal with things differently. I know there's a lot of people in New York City that still need to heal from that one episode, right? Now let's move into the second one that we're talking about, and this is COVID. This other C word, I call it. Cancer is the first, COVID is the second. So New York City, epicenter, right? I remember one time being so overwhelmed. I was working on a hot team, working with COVID patients, losing them every single day, and being stressed out and walking outside and calling you. Because the first thing I thought of was, I wonder how Dinorah is dealing with this in New York. I mean, you guys are the epicenter. I'm dealing with it. I wonder how she's doing it. And I went outside and I called you. And you said to me, you have no freaking idea. You have no idea, what we're doing. Every day we're going, and sometimes we're arriving and it's DOA, right? Dead on arrival. The person has already passed because they waited too long to seek for help. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So in this situation, my role was different. I was not the patient care provider. I was the division commander. So it was actually, I had just a couple of months earlier, I had been recently promoted to division commander. And so my first command was Brooklyn South, or what we call EMS Division 5, which basically I was responsible for Staten Island, the whole borough of Staten Island, and parts of borough of Brooklyn South, which is like Sunset Park, Bensonhurst, Dyker Heights, Coney Island. So those were the areas that I was, responsible for. So now here I was managing the resources, right? So I was managing the resources, making sure that my members, my coworkers, my officers had the available tools and supplies to be, number one, safe, and then to continue providing pre-hospital care. And it was from one day to the next. I remember it was in March. I remember the beginning of March, I went to someone's retirement party, and another week, the following week, I think I went to Celine Dion's concert at the Barclays, and within a week of that, it was like shut down. The
Done.
entire, it came to our doorsteps. Everything was shutting down. Our, patient call volume was going through the roof. Our members, were stepping up to the plate themselves and working, anywhere from 16 to 18-hour tours. My officers themselves, myself, I was working, 16-hour tours. And through all that, I get, they were the frontline workers. They were dealing with the death straight on. And like you said, sometimes they walked in and the patients were already gone. Other times they had to provide resuscitative measures, right? And
Somebody with COVID.
it got so overwhelming that medical directives were put into place, and we were basically told, you're going to arrive at this person's home, you're going to do resuscitative measures for 20 minutes, and that's it. If they cannot be resuscitated within those 20 minutes, then we have to let them go. We have to stop all the resuscitative measures and now pronounce the patient. That was very difficult.
So tell me something. Sorry to interrupt you, but before COVID, how long would you work on a patient? How much longer than 20 minutes?
So, sometimes it went 40 minutes, sometimes an hour. It all depended on the patient's response, right? Because we have, electrical activity, we provide medication. That medication is basically to jumpstart your heart, to try to correct whatever metabolic issues were going on, right? So It was always, usually it went on for long periods of time, or depending on the age, and the circumstances, the medical history, sometimes patients were removed right away to the hospital, right? But now we were being overwhelmed.
Yeah, the volume is it. I'm sure you're on this call and you're being called for another call in the same area with the very same thing.
Because, my officers were going to, 7, 8, 10, 13 cardiac arrests in one shift. It was overwhelming.
Because I know we were calling EMS all the time. I was in elder care, which was another one that was affected, right? So the assisted livings and the long-term care facilities. I was in assisted living. We would have our patients stable. Then all of a sudden it was like the witching hour. After 3 o'clock, all of a sudden they would just drop. They were fine, right? And then all of a sudden vital signs start changing. Yeah. And we didn't know what was going on. We had never had anything like this before, and we're calling EMS too. So
the ones that were transported, we were coming to hospitals, and the hospitals were overwhelmed. They had no more room. They had
no rooms.
Extensions to the emergency room, to put up tents outside of the emergency room centers. Along with that, all the isolation precautions that had to be taken by our members, and especially after walking into the hospitals, so it was a constant. It was definitely, overwhelming. I got to give it to my frontline, workers, EMTs, paramedics, my officers. They weathered the storm and they came back day after day. And then they started getting affected, right? Because, we're not superheroes. We're human, and we're susceptible to illness as well. So then we started seeing our own members become patients. And now we had that added stress, right? And then we were providing care for our own members. We were going to their doorsteps, removing them as well. And we did lose, a lot of, EMS, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, even some of our civilian workforce. So it was very challenging to us. We had the war coming at us from both sides. And we had to reach out, and we did, and we reached out to other states, and we eventually got what we call mutual assistance, mutual aid. So we had ambulances from Kentucky, Florida. Everybody came to our rescue, So that was overwhelming, and we had them working in all boroughs within the New York City area. So, and then we had so many people donating to us as well, especially the residents that we were trying to help. They were donating food and donating articles of clothing because they knew that, our guys, some of them were not even going home because they were fearful of bringing this to their families.
That's right.
No,
I went through that myself. Yep. Having to go through a different entrance. Thankfully, I had a separate entrance that I could go through, undress, decontaminate. I would call my decontamination room, throw the clothing in and get washed and go naked up the stairs, not naked, but with covered up, so that I could take a shower before I even say hello to anybody, right? To try to keep everybody safe.
Myself, with my elderly mother, I was, I had a separate entrance. I would walk in, everything would come off, right into the shower. If I went upstairs to say hello to mom, it was from a distance, which was hard for her, and I had to explain it several times until she finally saw on, what was happening to the residents of this state, and how we were losing people. And then unfortunately it hit us personally. I lost an uncle to, to COVID that we never got to see, and then of course I had since I'm like the patriarch of the family and I'm in the EMS field. So then when he passed, then that became also something that I had to take on and make arrangements for, and so on and so on.
Right. Difficult decisions, and everybody that's watching this, I want you to understand that this happened globally. This happened everywhere. If you see an EMS worker, say thank you, right? Be kind. Sometimes we come at them, and nurses and doctors, and I know it's a frustrating period and confusion and emotional, but remember that we're the ones that run in.
Yeah, we work in very chaotic settings.
Yes, we do.
By the time our members bring a patient to a hospital, it's a controlled environment. We don't work in controlled environments. We have to work on the patient and deal with what's around us, and also ensure our safety, because unfortunately, when people don't take the time to learn about what's going on, or even listen to what we're trying to explain, how the process is and how we go about treating the patient, because they're not just ambulance drivers. We are pre-hospital care providers. We bring the emergency room to your bedside, or to the street, so be patient, listen, ask questions, because there are many of us that are being, that are out there being assaulted. Just recently, last year we did lose a captain, just stepped out of the station, and she was tragically murdered. A couple of weeks ago, we had one of our voluntary, hospitals that work within the 911 system, and we had a young lady that was assaulted by a patient, was stabbed several times. Luckily, she survived that. So you know what, the work, as one previous mayor quoted, that I quote, says the work is different, but the danger is the same or even worse. Because remember, when EMS providers come into your home, there's only two of them, two people, sometimes a third with the officer, depending on the assignment. So it is dangerous work, and oftentimes they don't get their just due. They don't get their just due. So like Marilyn says, say hey. You don't even have to say thank you.
That's right. Just be kind, right? They are the calm in the chaos.
Just acknowledge all pre-hospital care workers, as well as the workers that work in the hospital as well.
Absolutely, because they work in dangerous situations. I can't tell you how many times nurses and doctors have been assaulted, or the patient doesn't like what they're being told. It's a very emotional, unstable environment, just like you're talking about, right? It is very difficult. It's so difficult. But remember, there are people like myself, like Dinorah, that we've dedicated our entire lives to this. We went in this as children, and we're still here. We're still here going strong. So, we talked about a lot of heavy stuff. I want to talk about something funnier. You talk about being vertically challenged, right?
All the time. I want to make it a protected category. Okay.
So
Yes,
since my viewers can't tell how tall you are, tell us, how tall are you?
how tall I am, but I am 4'11".
4'11". Okay. On a good
4
day.
feet
So
11. On a good day. I have my
on a good
Crocs on today, so I'm like an extra 2 inches higher. With my
exactly. And
when I
then you fluff your hair out.
and my hair, they got the hair going.
Yeah. So how did that affect you?
Well, yeah, definitely challenging, right? Because especially in my field of work, when I was on an ambulance and I would go to somebody's home, and then I never looked my age. I always looked younger than my age, so people thought I was this kid, But meanwhile, I was 22 years old when I started this job,
Right.
so I had good genes. But people would look and think like, "You're gonna help me. You're gonna carry me." And again, challenge accepted, right?
That's
It's
right.
all in the body mechanics. It's all in the body mechanics. And you know what? And if I size you up and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I call for help. I have
Yeah.
teams, you know.
That's right. Call for
I have
help. Don't be
I have
afraid to
a
ask
whole,
for
I
help.
have a whole fire department behind me, right? So we call for help. But yeah, I carried people down the stairs and lifted up those two-man stretchers or two-person stretchers, right? Now
Right.
everything is very fancy. You hit a button, the stretcher goes up, you just push it in. Well, back in my day, I lifted patients,
Right. Right.
balancing, the stretchers, no fancy, hit the button and it goes up on its own. The ambulances didn't come down, like the back end of the ambulances, the hydraulics didn't come down to you, which is what we have now. We have Cadillacs now for ambulances. Back then, it was pure,
That's
muscle
right.
and
Your
and
muscle physical strength. That's right. And I'm sure it's taken its toll on you over the years. But
body.
yeah, listen, I'm afraid of her. I'm going to try to fight this girl. Oh, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for being here with me today, for sharing all the golden nuggets that you did with me today. The last question I want to ask you, and that's that I ask all of my guests on the show, is how do you define success?
So, personal success, I never thought I would get to this level, to be in the same office where my division commander was. All right.
Right.
That's personal success and perseverance. My thing was, why not? Right? Why not me? I didn't let people and distractions get into my way. Right. And I created tools to help me along the way, and also to meet the needs, my personal needs, and the needs of my children and my family. That's my personal success. But success in overall, with regards to my career, is that I get the opportunity to impart my knowledge and experience on those coming behind me,
That's
right?
right.
To leave this place in a much better place than what was left for me. To open doors for people that look like me, that speak like me, that have similar backgrounds, Hispanics, Latinas, you know, doesn't matter if you're male or female, right? And show them that I am living proof of what they can, achieve themselves. Don't put barriers in front of yourself. Open them up, and don't let people block your entrance to any road you want to take. That's what success is to me. When somebody comes up to me and say, "Hey, Dinorah, Dino, or Chief Claudio, I remember when we had this exchange,
Right.
and or you said this to me, or you said that to me, or you told me take this exam or that exam or whatever, and I thank you for it, and now here I am." My purpose is to bring more people up behind me, especially my people. You know, um, so don't put negativity before yourself, and
Right.
don't
We
let
have an
anybody stop you on your path to success. And listen, and if you want to be an EMT for life, a paramedic for life, then be the best EMT and paramedic for life. Whatever your goal is, always strive to be the best. You don't have to become an officer like me, but leave memorable, positive messages behind. And that's success.
That's right. Be the best that you can be. Thank you so much. That was such a great, fantastic messages. And also, don't put barriers where there are none. Barriers that are in your mind, right? Eliminate them. You just saw this girl came from humble beginnings, and where she is today, I am honored to be her friend. Thank you again for being here with us today. And to my viewers, I will see you next time.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gabrielle Morales, and I am a recruitment coordinator for Be The Match. My journey with Be The Match actually began when I was only 9 years old. At that point, my 7-month-old baby sister was diagnosed with an extremely rare form of leukemia. Through the Be The Match registry, we were able to find a matching donor for my sister. And although a few months later, we lost her, her cancer was cured. Our family is so thankful for the additional months that we had with my sister. And ever since then, I've made a promise to myself to dedicate my life to helping children just like Isabella and helping families like ours by continuing her legacy. Hence why I now work for Be The Match. I love what I do so much, and I'm able to spread awareness about the huge need for more donors on the registry, especially those of diverse backgrounds. There is currently a huge disparity within the registry for minority patients, and we need your help. It is so simple to save a life and to be put on the registry. You can visit izzyslegacy.com or text Izzy's Legacy to the number 61474 to start the registration process to be on the Be The Match registry, to hopefully be a life-saving match for a searching patient in need.